I don't know. It just I am more heartened by the fact of what's gone on in the past year and the demonstration of people, at least, collectively deciding their future with all the messiness that it entails, as opposed to, oh, well, the great experiment of the 20th century in some version of democracy and open markets and open societies has proven to be an abject, if not failure, then it's been rejected or seized or overthrown or whatever. And like, that's my provisionally optimistic view in the moment.
I kind of agree with you on this in that I think things could have been much worse on all of the elections that we're discussing, and including the ones that we haven't discussed. I think when you think of the challenges that people have faced, and one of the big ones is the media. So I think in the last few years, alongside countries that have seen a cult of personality, there has been an element of media capture where, you mentioned Putin, he controls TV in Russia. Modi largely, I won't say controls the media in India, but he is connected to the people who really have control over India's mass media. Most countries around the world that have leaders who have an authoritarian bent, they are accompanied with situations where media as a pillar of democracy has been weakened. And I think the heartening thing here is that despite that, regular people have found ways of cutting through and using YouTube and being influencers who tackle this kind of media capture with humor and with jokes and with memes and with very powerful narratives of, speaking truth to power. That's what we saw in India, by the way. There were all of these YouTubers with tens of millions of followers who were able to basically call BS when they needed to, and were immensely popular and led to a sense of a bubble being pricked, which may have then in part led to people voting the way they did. And there's a feedback loop from country to country, from election to election. And I think we are going to see more and more influencers. So not people who are paid to sit behind an anchor desk, but just people, regular people who rise up, who are able to speak truth to power, and who are able to do so with humor, by using memes, by connecting with people where they are in an authentic way, that I think will end up shaping political movements, elections, choices in ways that I think most people haven't cottoned on to. And I include myself in that as an old school media guy who is just beginning to grapple with how fragmented and fractured the media is. And I used to lament that, but I'm coming around to the notion that there are real upsides to that.
Well, what you're saying was certainly the case in the European Parliament elections in Cyprus, recently with Phidias Panayiotou, because he's a 24-year-old YouTuber, 2 million followers, went on TV with 3 neckties and was like, hey, I'm running for parliament, guys. And 40% of Gen Z voters voted for him. And he did get voted in as an independent, which I've heard people interpreting again, like we were saying with Modi, as like a screw you to the current government of Cyprus. But it's also just like, wow, really, like anybody can become a politician if they have, influence and reach.
Yeah, exactly. If you look around the world historically, politicians were more likely to be like landed gentry. There's a term in Pakistan, the term is electable, someone who basically has land and has people who work on the land and, is of course going to get elected. I think what you're describing, this example, is something we'll see more and more of around the world. And it's a churning of traditional systems of achieving power. It breaks through funding models, which are campaign finance is broken the world over. We can agree on that. In as much as young media influencers have a way of getting around all these systems, the party system, the funding system, that's a good thing. I think it's a new form and phase of democracy that will shake things up in a way that also, frankly, energizes young people who often don't feel energized when they have to vote for people who are 4 times their age.
Well, I was quite optimistic, Ravi. That wasn't at all depressing dinner guest takes.
I tried.